Well, thanks very much, Joe, and thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, everybody. Give me a big cheer if you saw my talk yesterday in here. Okay, lots of you. Good stuff, good stuff. Well, I'm pleased to say I wrote a whole new talk last night for you, so I'm not going to repeat yesterday. Right, let's go for this thing. So the first question some of you are looking at me and wondering is, who the fuck is this guy? And the answer to that question is I'm an author from the UK, ladies and gentlemen. I've written various books, including the first book about Bitcoin. There it is, Bitcoin, the Future of Money, written in 2014. The best book about Bitcoin, according to my mum. And Richard Branson said, read it and glimpse into the future, but it's not clear he did actually read it. And I'm going to be selling it at the back after the show, if any of you guys are interested. I also wrote this film, which was about societal decline, and as you address, it was a big hit on the internet a few years ago, but it addresses many of the problems that you raised in your question. And you probably might have seen some of these. During the lockdown, I hired a projector, and we went out in the middle of the night and put slanderous messages onto various buildings around London. And that was we put that on the Bank of England, money printer go brrr, like that. And then there's another one, we put Bitcoin fixes this onto the Bank of England. That was very naughty of us. Whee! And I was very pleased with this one. The Conservative Party in the UK are also known as the Tory Party, and I put this on we broadcast this onto Parliament, onto the Houses of Parliament. Vote Tory, get Klaus Schwab. So, and that's my newsletter if you want to read my newsletter, The Flying Frisbee. So, ladies and gents, I want to talk to you briefly about cycles. Now, there are all sorts of cycles. We have the daily cycle, night and day. We have the cycle of the moon, the seasons of the year. There are all sorts of the cycle of life. There are all sorts of cycles that take place in and around our lives. And it's quite easy for an academic to look back at the past and find some arbitrary pattern and declare it a cycle. And I'm going to do just that now, because I've noticed a cycle in the evolution of money. And if you go all the way back in time to 700 AD, this is when coinage was first invented. And coinage was one of the most brilliant fintechs that has ever been invented, if not the most brilliant, because suddenly with the invention of a coin, you could certify the weight and purity of the metal in that coin. And it created economic mobility. Suddenly people could move around, mostly around the Mediterranean, and carry their wealth with them. And this allowed for lots of trade and exchange, and with trade and exchange, we get the development of civilization. Coinage was a wonderful technology. And then, this is what I talk about when I talk about the 100-year cycle of money. With the invention of the printing press, we invented printed money, and that worked alongside coinage. And that began in the UK probably in the early 1600s. And then in 1716, Isaac Newton, the great physicist, arranged he was the master of the mint, effectively the equivalent of the governor of the Bank of England. And he established the great recoinage of 1716. And he was trying to put Britain onto a gold and silver standard, but everyone was selling their silver. So it ended up being a gold standard. And that standard worked very well. And then when the Napoleonic Wars came around at the turn of the century, Britain came off the gold standard and printed the money it needed for the war. And so we got another great recoinage in 1816 as Britain went back onto the gold standard. And that lasted 100 years until 1914, when France and Germany and Britain and most of Europe abandoned the gold standard once again in order to pay for the First World War. And here we are 100 years later, and we have the next evolution in this cycle of money. So there is a sort of 100-year cycle in money. And of course, the next evolution is crypto and Bitcoin entering the mainstream. There's another one we put on the Bank of England. Fiat, is the bubble. Bitcoin is the pin. We were pleased with that one as well. Now, if I told you that government spending is going to be uncontrollable, not even Elon Musk, the cleverest man in the world, will be able to stop it. Over decades, governments are going to debase their currencies into oblivion. They won't be able to stop it because of the democratic system, as you allude. They won't be able to hide it. But there is a potential solution in this new technology called Bitcoin. Its network, and I Googled this yesterday, so it must be true, is over 600,000 times more powerful than the world's most powerful 1,000 supercomputers combined. It's incredibly strong. Some nation states will hold it. Multinational corporations will hold it. It stands a chance of being the default money system of the world. If I told you all of that, and you said, nah, it's too risky. That is some people's reaction. Owning Bitcoin is too risky. And what is so amazing about that reaction is that that man has 3 hands. There's AI for you. The risk is not owning Bitcoin. It's not owning Bitcoin. Does that make sense? The risk is not owning Bitcoin, it's not owning it. Its potential is so enormous, why would you not want to have exposure to this incredible technology? There's another one we put on the Bank of England. Print von Mises, not money. Bit of a niche joke, that one, but the von Mises Institute liked it. Now here we have, ladies and gentlemen, 6 of the cleverest people in all recorded history. We have William Shakespeare there, the greatest writer who ever lived. Isaac Newton, the greatest physicist. Beethoven, the greatest composer. Isambard Kingdom Brunel, one of the greatest engineers. Michael Faraday, the chemist, discovered electricity, invented electricity. And Alan Turing, the computer scientist. And what do all these people have in common? Let me hear you. Massive foreheads. You are absolutely right, ladies and gentlemen. Massive foreheads. In the case of Alan Turing, he hides his by combing his hair over the front. And then here we have some of the greatest Bitcoiners in history. We have Hal Finney, the inventor of Bitcoin. Look at that massive forehead there. Nick Szabo, the other inventor of Bitcoin, massive forehead. Adam Back, I should say, he has got an absolute belter. Look at the size of that forehead, ladies and gentlemen. He also invented Bitcoin. Elon Musk invented Bitcoin too. He's got a massive forehead. Look at that Brian Armstrong forehead. That is from the future, ladies and gents, that one. Michael Saylor, he's got a massive forehead. Like Alan Turing, he combs his hair over the front to hide its huge sight. There, Mao Zedong, an enormous forehead. And finally, we have the alien forehead from the future there. And investing in Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen, I did an AI study. If you look at the foreheads of those people sitting in the room around you now, look at the person sitting next to you, you all have massive foreheads. And the average forehead of a size at a Bitcoin conference is over 0.5 centimeter higher than the forehead you will find at a mining or a real estate conference. The IQ of the Bitcoin community is enormous. And this is what I like to say. Bitcoin, the currency, is the cumulative combined IQ of Bitcoin, the protocol, the community, the movement. That is what you are getting when you buy Bitcoin, the product of this combined cumulative IQ. And so we have yet another reason to own it, ladies and gents. This was on HMRC, which is the equivalent of the IRS. This is the government tax building. We projected that taxation is a form of theft. Right, let's crack on with this. Time for some truths. What you see here is the consumer price index in the UK and the US over the course of the 19th century, when money was gold, ladies and gentlemen. And here we have the Great Recoinage, 1816, which I mentioned before. And over the course of the next 40 years, when money was sound, you saw that prices more than halved. In other words, the same wage over the course of that 40 years would have bought you double as much. That's the total opposite to what has happened to money over the course of the 20th and the 21st century. Your purchasing power doubled, and no wonder there was this extraordinary growth of the middle class. Then, of course, we got the American Civil War in 1860, and prices suddenly zoomed up. Inflation always comes with war. And then over the course of the next 40 years or so, prices halved once again. I think that's a very profound chart. The implications of what happens when you have sound money, prices go down. This is the Consumer Price Index all the way from 1695, when the Bank of England was formed. And you can see in that period between 1800 and 1900, that is that chart there. And you can see how in the grander scheme of things, prices went up a little bit, they came a little down a little bit, they went up a little bit, they came down a little bit. And then over the course of the 20th century, something happened. Money changed, it became fiat, and suddenly the Consumer Price Index has gone absolutely bananas. Now, let me show you this. The argument against that is, well, wages have gone up. And here is the average wage in the US median annual earnings. And you can see it keeps on rising every year. But if you measure those wages in gold, ladies and gents, in old-fashioned money, you can see that wages are the lowest that they've ever been in 40 years. So in real money, wages are down. And if you measure them in Bitcoin, they've gone through the floor. Now, I want to show you this table. This table shows you the prices of various things in 1970 compared to today. And you can see that average salaries, this is in the UK, but it applies to the Czech Republic, it applies all over Europe and the West and America. The average salary has gone up 22 times since 1970, but the average house has gone up 70 times. The average car, Ford Cortina, has gone up 32 times. A luxury car has gone up 40 times. A pint of beer has gone up 40 times. A pint of milk's only gone up 12 times. A gallon of petrol's gone up 23 times. Eggs have only gone up 20 times. Washing machine's only gone up 4 times. And a phone call, the cost of a phone call, you can now call anyone, anywhere in the world on a video call, and it costs you nothing. That's because of the incredible deflationary effects of technology. Now, most of the time, we don't pay salaries using debt. Salaries are paid out of cash flow. However, we buy houses using debt, and debt is how fiat money gets created. And that is why houses have gone so much up by so much more than wages, because debt has entered this market, and it's a fixed market because of planning laws, and so prices have ballooned. Similarly, we buy cars using finance most of the time, using debt. And so even though the production techniques of making cars have got better because they've got stereos and air conditioning and things like that, but car production techniques have also improved, yet they've gone up, they should have come down in value. But because for the most part we use finance, that is, extra money has entered this market and it's kept prices up high. Beer and petrol are both heavily taxed, and so the tax has pushed up the cost of these things. For the most part, we don't use finance to buy beer. But then if you look at things like milk and eggs, and washing machines, we don't use finance to buy them, we use cash to buy them, and so they haven't gone up by nearly as much. And so any market that involves debt, and this is also why student fees, student loans, the cost of university have gone up, because of the introduction of debt into these markets. And I hope that explains why certain assets have gone up by so much more than other assets. Washing machines, we've got better at making them. We don't use debt to buy them, and we've outsourced their production to China. And so China's been able to export its own deflation. And so the cost of them has only gone up 4 times. That should be what's happened. But if you compare that to the 19th century, the price of everything fell. Prices came down by more than half, and all these things should cost less now than what they cost 40 or 50 years ago, but they don't. And I think that's a very telling table, ladies and gents. And I'm almost at a close here. And there we go. We put that on the BBC, British Brainwashing Corporation. Oh my God, it gave me so much pleasure writing all these notes and putting up on the buildings, I can't tell you. Ladies and gents, I'll be signing my book over there at the room at the back there if anyone wants to come and buy it. Be like Ross, be like one of my readers. He bought my book last week, he's even in it. And thanks very much. Sign up for my newsletter, and thanks for listening to me once again, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Secure your BTC Prague 2026 ticket at the lowest possible price now.